Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you this morning. It's good to be alive. This morning on Community Connection, it's going to be a scintillating episode, as it usually is, and we're going to add a little bit to that as we interview a pastor today. So we'll interview him in just a little bit. But I did want to say to you, this is our opportunity to interview folks that are making a difference in our community, that are having a profound impact on kids and families. And so today, I think you're going to enjoy this. But I do have a question for our producer, Taylor, the Melvinator Melvin.
Wow, full name.
Do Gen Xers, or excuse me, Gen Zers, do you use the term scintillating? Is that a word that you use?
No, but after hearing it, I honestly loved it. It made me smile. I thought it was fun.
Okay.
Yep. Representing the millennials, never heard that word in my life. So
Okay. So maybe the Gen Zers will pick it up. It's a good word. All right. So, Jacob, we have a guest today, and I'd love to be able to have you just describe and introduce our guest today.
yeah, absolutely. So this is actually my first time on one of these too. So my name is Jacob. I serve as Patrick Henry's church coordinator. And here with us today is Pastor Matt from Living Word Baptist Church. And he serves as and remind me your exact title?
Pastor of Member Care.
Member Care. And yeah, Pastor Matt, he's just been a powerhouse making such a difference in the community, has lots of great stories, and want to bring him here today and share his experiences with everyone.
Welcome, Matt.
It's an honor to be here. It's been great partnering with Patrick Henry through the Care Portal to make a difference and an impact. And I appreciate y'all having me here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you tell us, tell everybody just a little bit about your call to ministry, how you met Christ, your previous professional background, because that's an amazing story too.
I was a restaurant manager. I got out of high school. I got a secular degree. And I went and got a job in a restaurant manager and assistant manager, and then became a unit manager, and then eventually an area supervisor. And I was working for a very large national chain, and they brought in a consultant. And I was talking to the consultant, and he says, I come in, I spend like 4 days, I write my report. And I said, does that pay well? And he said, it pays extraordinarily well. And I thought, gee whiz, I think. So I had business cards printed up and sent out things and basically sold myself in interviews and lined up a series of consulting jobs and resigned where I was. And I did that. And I was blessed with a great deal of success. And at that stage in my life, I'd been born and raised Episcopalian. I'd been an altar boy, carry the cross to that. But it was very much me checking the box. What I did that day, and even when I donated or did an act of service, it wasn't led by the Holy Spirit. It was led by me just checking that box. Mm-hmm. I had been raised to do certain things. That was one of the things you did. And I continued on that path for a number of years, and I was 29 years old, and my oldest boy was getting ready to be born. And the best daycare happened to be at a fundamental Baptist church. And I tried to avoid Baptist any way that I could, but they put me on a list and they said, we'd love to have you visit the church. And I didn't want them to think I was an atheist. So I came and I sat in the back and really wasn't paying that much attention. And as I remember it, they did an altar call, which I was somewhat familiar with, but not completely familiar with. And I was sort of amazed at people, and I was thinking, I wonder what they're thinking as they go forth. And the next thing I remember, I was down front, and the pastor said, what are you, what are you here for, son? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. And I ended up sitting on the front row till service was over. And I remember walking very fast out to my car and thinking, I'm glad I don't have to do that again. But then I kept showing up. I showed up Sunday night, and then I showed up Wednesday, and I showed up Sunday. And I had a fairly distinctive automobile, and people would say, I saw you at the Baptist church. And I lied, said, no, that wasn't me, because I had nothing in my, and I didn't understand. There was a lot of things going on I didn't understand. I just knew that I was just supposed to be there. And I came forth again, and the pastor sat down and we talked. And he told me, you must be born again. You must. And I remember growing up, hearing some of the kids in my school would talk about that, and I'd be like, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. And made the decision, and then I was trying to reconcile who I now was. I didn't even understand the whole you become a new creature. Mm-hmm. I was just trying to understand how I fit that in with everything that was in my life, because that's what I always did. If I choose to add something, I would figure out how to fit it in. But this wasn't like that, because it never left me. And I was thinking about it all the time. And I now understand conviction, to know that I was under conviction for an enormous array of things. And I wasn't even sure really why. And I was still working at trying to fit it in. And I went home that day after working, and I hit the light switch. And I remember seeing something, and I looked back, and it was red, and it was blood. And I was actually starting to bleed from my nose, from my ears, different. And it was like a moment of terror. Then there was hitting the floor. And they call, and they take me in an ambulance. Make a long story short, they told me they were going to do exploratory surgery, but they had no idea. But I was bleeding massively internally. And after a number of surgeries, one of which I lost a lung, but they took out most of my large and small intestines, tonsils, appendix, gallbladder. And they discovered that, I believe it's pronounced Michel's diatorium. The umbilical cord attaches to the belly button, and from the intestinal tract to the belly button, there's this little thing, and it usually dissolves in the first 30 days of a baby's life once the cord is cut. And I had a little flap, and for whatever reason, it started opening, and they said it was like a pinprick in a high pressure hose. I had massive internal bleeding. And Dr. James Smith here in Lynchburg performed the surgery, removed that little small part. But there were a number of years of rehab and learning how to adjust. And obviously, all those surgeries, I was left with certain things. But when I left the hospital, I walked with a walker and an oxygen tank. And eventually got those off. And I was born and raised in Hurt, Virginia. And so the only Baptist preacher I knew was Dr. Falwell. And I called Kathy Russ, it was his secretary. I said, I need to talk to Dr. Falwell. She was very, very nice. What did this concern? I just need to talk to somebody. And they said, well, he's getting ready to take a trip. You can ride with him to the airport. And so I get there, and I start telling them all these things. And I said, I wake up, and I think I could do this. I could do that. Why don't churches do this? Why don't? And he listened for a relatively short period of time, and he was like, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's going to pull over and throw me out. And he said, I believe you have God's call on your life. You come to school, I'll pay for it. And I had to be the least likely person that would ever get a scholarship to Liberty. And until his death, Dr. Falwell was an enormous support. And I was at Thomas Road and at Liberty for a number of years. And one of my students was doing pulpit supply at Living Word Baptist Church. And I pulled up, and the church then was much different than it is today. And it was a metal building, and some committee had voted to paint it mustard orange. And
Interesting.
I thought that's the ugliest church building I've ever seen. And I remember as I was walking in, I was thinking, I'm glad you didn't call me to this place. And I walked in and he called me, and I've been there 26 years.
That's amazing.
And I always tell people would call and they'd say, would you be interested in? And I go, for me, I've always felt that if God wanted me to move, he would let me know that. And so I never had a thought in my mind, but this is where I'll be. Mm-hmm. And it's been 26 incredible years.
Yeah, and it's been 26 years and I know you've built like a reputation for yourself of, like, you're the pastor that's always there. Like, you shared a story with me recently of you had done a funeral for a woman's dog.
Yes.
Because no one else would.
Yeah. And, because a lot of people, they'll say, it's beneath the dignity of the office to do this or to do that. But when she came to me, she said, I was never able to have children. The dog lived 16 years. It's as much my child as it humanly possibly could be. And I was thinking, oh, you better say no to this. And but in the end, I couldn't. And so I said, look, I can't say the dog's in heaven. I'll do what I always do. I'll present the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I'll talk about how God loved us so much. He not only gave us this incredible creation, but he gave us dogs and cats and birds, whatever it is that you have as a pet, that's how great God is to us. And I sort of expected, I'm a country boy, so your dog died, you went out in the yard, past the yard, and you dug a hole and you put the dog in. And I got there, it was a precision drilled square thing, and it had a little railing around it, just like when someone dies. And they had metal folding chairs with the white covers, and there was about 60 people. And I've done a lot of funerals that did not have 60 people. And so I was like, boy, that must have been some dog. But yeah, I've had, people. I had a lady call me once, and she had a very large dog, and it was sick. And she said, you got to come and take it to the vet for me. You have a truck, you can pick up the dog. And I had an appointment, and I'm like, and then at the end, it's, to me, I try to be led by the Holy Spirit. And sometimes what I feel led to do doesn't make any sense. But who am I to know the mind of God? And so as long as I'm sure who I'm listening to, then I just try to respond to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I know it's like, and you have dozens of just wild stories of how you've gone to show up for people and be the light of Christ in someone's life. Mm-hmm. And something else I'll make a semi-commercial for too. Another great ministry you have is you are still a phenomenal cook as well. Pastor Matt, our ministries have been connected together for some time now, but the first time that we had gotten the pleasure to meet, I was at a Southern Baptist Convention lunch that the church was hosting, and great meal. You had a team of people that helped you put together, and just ministry of hospitality you got to have for everybody in the room. And but I'm sitting next to you, I'm having your peach cobbler, and I'm like, Pastor Matt, this is incredible. Mm-hmm. Then out of thin air, whips out a piece of paper with a recipe on it.
every church now talks about community. It's like a buzzword. We're going to build community. When I think community, I think family. When I think family, I came from a very large family. I'm the smallest of my mama's boys, if you can imagine. And there were 6 of us, and nobody ever said in a minute when my parents said, it's time to eat. We came, we laughed, we talked. I believe when you're trying to welcome new church members, or when you're trying to make someone feel comfortable, you break bread with them. And I love to cook, and I love being close enough to Liberty University because you get some of those guys eat. We just did yesterday a Brookville JV and senior high basketball. They said 50-some people. And so I did baked spaghetti. And we did a salad. And while I was doing it, one of the new volunteers who hadn't worked with me before, she said, "Why do you put so much emphasis on the way it looks?" And I said, "Well, a lot of people say some people don't care how it looks, only how it tastes." Well, then you've never had someone who took the time to make it look good. It should appeal to the eyes. It should be. I love cooking for people, being in the midst, and I love those lunches because you have an opportunity to
Absolutely.
meet people.
Yeah, I think that speaks to your heart as well of, hey, like not just doing something to kind of cover and like, okay, like big batch of baked spaghetti, like cover the basics, but hey, like give your best, like give like your first fruits to the community.
And I have people talk about the longer I've been in ministry, well, you don't have to do this. And I had never, prior to salvation, started really reading, studying the Bible. But once I was saved, once I did read, what I saw was the word servant over and over and over again. And so that's the way I've always seen myself. I'm not big on titles. I've been the executive pastor. I've been in interim. I've been all the. To me, it's just I'm a servant. How can I help you? How can I, what's your situation?
Yeah.
And Jesus speaks real clearly to that too, right? That's what he's called us to do. Liam, I'm going to call an audible and suggest that we don't do the commercial break here today. And by the way, some of you may have noticed I don't look like Robert J. Day. So in case you're wondering, Mr. Day is not feeling well today. And so they went with the backup, which is myself, Jeff Nitz. So good again have you here today on Community Connection. So I'm curious to hear how you had this connection, Matt, with Patrick Henry, and how you got involved with this technology portal called Care Portal.
We had a young lady at the church, and she was already active, and she came to me, and I've always had a rule that if somebody wants to talk about a ministry, I sit down, I listen, and if nothing else, I pray with them about it. And so I listened. I thought it sounded really good, but we do the Salvation Army, the disaster relief, Kairos prison ministry, My Father's House transitional housing for prisoners, homeless ministry, Blue Ridge Pregnancy Center. And so my first thought, and particularly as, the leadership of the church, they're like, okay, we just keep expanding, it's, and I said no. And I remember clearly, she said, I'm going to keep coming back until you say yes. And I like that. If no ends it for you, you didn't have a passion for it to begin with. And so the next time she came, I'm listening, and she took a phone, and she goes, and I remember her moving it with her finger, and then she turned and she shows me, and she's talking, she's telling me, but all I saw were these stories and these little paragraphs telling you about what the need was And then down in the bottom, a lot of times people approach and they say, this is the situation. Okay, well, what exactly do you want from me? And down across on the bottom, it says, this is the need. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's perfect. You look at it, you see it. And that day, reading them, I think it was the second or the third one I read. I was like, oh yeah, I need to do that one. I'm a storyteller, and so the story aspect of them being there. And I tell people it's like prayer requests. You don't remember every prayer request you hear, but some of them you never forget. Mm-hmm. And it's the ones that I hear, and I'll be on the phone talking to someone 2 minutes later, and in the back of my mind, there's like, we can do that. Mm-hmm. We can do that.
Yeah, and so, sorry, I was just going to kind of like bring up too, and like this is a question I asked because I know you have like lots of great examples of this. Of one of the reasons that we do Care Portal is because there's that opportunity of, yes, meet a practical need, keep a family together, with the hope that a meaningful relationship can be made. And so there's been a lot of ways that following a Care Portal quest has been sometimes where you've really gone to show up the most for a kid or a family. So share like a story about that.
Well, a couple of them. First of all, there was the one, and that was a very young teenager, and he had a 14.5E shoe size. And his father was incarcerated, his mother was deceased, and he wanted a pair of sneakers. I'm a big guy. When I wear 14 quadruple E shoes, I read that and I thought most people won't know how to get a comfortable pair of shoes. And then I found out he liked basketball, and I was like, I know people that play. So I called, and they said Reebok. They gave me a thing. And so I wondered, had anyone ever taken him and got him a really comfortable pair of shoes, something that he could. And I didn't want to check the box. I wanted him to be blown away. And I ordered it on Amazon, and while we were waiting, it had they delayed shipping several times, and it's getting right near Christmas. And someone else fulfilled it. They didn't get a pair of sneakers, but they fulfilled it. And it was a school teacher who had posted it. And I had contacted her, kept telling her the shoes are coming, the shoes are coming. And I told her, and I said, I don't care. I said, I still want him to have the shoes. And I said, if you'll tell me where, I'll drive them. The moment I get them, I'll drive them there. And she happened to be, I live off Timberlake, and so she happened to be coming that way. The shoes came in, and they got it. And he was extraordinarily happy because they were really cool shoes, and they were a name brand, and they were. Everybody likes to be surprised. Everybody likes to get the desires of whatever it is and so I didn't. I try not to check the box now, which used to be what I tried to do. Now I'm trying not to check the box. And then real quickly, there was a young man. The mother had bought all the clothes for him to go to school on. They had a big sale. And between her buying them and school coming up, none of them fit anymore. And at 13, I was 6'4", 300 pounds. And again, I was my mama's smallest boy. So we were, so that related, and I'm like, yeah, he tried those on and those didn't fit. And he probably, that's not the best thing for your self-image. You're like, gee whiz. And so I wanted to, they said he particularly wanted jeans. So I go to the youth group and I'm like, tell me what kind of jeans to buy. Tell me what to get. We went, we got the stuff. We go there. They live in government housing. Mom's doing the very best she can. Really great lady. We give the clothes. She in turn says, I have all these clothes that I have brought prior that no longer, I can't take them back and they don't fit. Can you use them and give them to someone else? And we did. But, every time we go, we give a Bible. Every time we go, we present the gospel. Every time we go, we tell people about the church. We had a grandmother who got her grandson, and they needed a double buggy. I don't know fashions and all that. So we have a bunch of moms. I called a mom. I said, what's a good buggy? And she told me, double buggy. And she said, buy a Jeep. And I said, like a car? And she said, well, it's called a Jeep. And it had bigger wheels. And I'm like, well, what do I know? And so I got it. We gave it to the grandma, gave her the Bible, invited her to church. She brought her grandson to VBS. She's been attending regular. She comes to our single moms group. We've been able to continue to bless her and bring her on. She's invited people who have came. Our single moms ministry has 4 of the ladies that we have helped through Care Portal who have became a part of the church. And we have a stay-at-home moms group. And just recently, I talked to a young lady that was diabetic, and she wanted to breastfeed. And we have a lady who teaches breastfeeding in the church. And I said she'd love to be available if you have any questions. And obviously, that's who I went to find out what kind of breast pump to get, because obviously I have no idea about that either. But
Yeah, and that's something I think is like a testament to your character of like all these times where you see a need, you're connected to a need. And again, you don't just check the box off and meet the request, but it's like, oh, hey, like this kid needs jeans. I'm going to go talk to the youth group. Like, hey, what's in style? Like, what should I get? Hey, this mom needs a buggy, a stroller. Like, talk to other moms. Like, what's needed here? And so you're just really intentional about seeking the guidance of the body of Christ around you and like working together.
yeah, I don't want someone to get something and say, okay. I'd like them to get it and go, wow. When we do backpacks full of school supplies, the first year I did it, I bought all these generic backpacks. And a little girl came up to me and she said, they're all green. And I said, well, yeah, I got a great price on these, great price. And she said, everyone will know where we got a backpack. And the next year, no two were alike. We got every kind of, it's worth the extra time. It's worth the extra money. You're trying to impact somebody's life and show them the love of Christ. You don't want to get cheap. You don't want to try to do that. You want to try to do that.
Yeah, but that level of intentionality, like it also goes beyond just the things too. Because you had told me one time about a mother who gave you a call after a Care Portal request because she needed advice for a decision for her son's education.
Yeah, she called and she had a question. I had no idea. To be honest, I didn't even know the situation existed. And so then I called. We have a lot of teachers. And as soon as I was talking to the teacher, she's like, oh, yeah. And she goes and tells me about it. And I'm like, well, let's get everybody in on a call. And so they were basically talking. I was just the bridge, and I often tell people, I don't have a clue, but I know somebody. And Living Word is phenomenal in that, I'll get a thing and I go, I don't know anybody that knows anything about that. And I start asking and somebody will go, oh, yeah. And then I just call. And I have found that people love to be called and ask their opinion and go, look, I need your help. I've never had anyone tell me I don't have time to talk to you or I don't want to. People appreciate that you sought their guidance.
Yeah. And like we love to hear these stories because like really what I would say is like the thesis statement behind everything that PHFS we do as an organization, what Care Portal, this whole network is around, is this idea of suffering, whether it be through getting involved in foster care or like other lifelong addictions and incarceration, homelessness that happens later. Like these things happen because of disconnection and because where people were cut off from each other and we're not receiving much needed support from those around us. That's how those things down spiral. And so mother comes to you with a question about education, says, oh, I don't know anything about that, but I know someone that does. That's a new relationship there too. And that just continues lifting people up into flourishment.
Again, when you talk about community and family, all my life when something happened, I would reach out to, while my mom and dad were alive, I'd reach out to them. You knew who to go to. And I meet people every day and they don't have anyone to go to. And I often tell people, you need somebody. You got me. Call me.
Yeah.
And everybody needs community, needs connection, needs a support system.
Amen.
And sometimes, if nothing else, a lot of times I just listen to people. It was very hard to learn that not every time people bring me a question do they want an answer. Sometimes they just want you to hear them and discuss options. They don't want you to say, this is what you should do. And age has given me a little bit of discernment in that, dealing with that.
I bet that's your best skill when it comes to pastoral care too. That listening here, people feel heard by you. I'm sure that's the case with you. We have to wrap up. I'm going to give you 45 seconds to share with our listeners about Living Word Baptist Church, Pastor Matt. So what's your 45-second commercial about your body?
We are a Southern Baptist conservative church, very conservative in our theology. It is as friendly of a place as you'll ever be. One of the reasons that people give for joining is they say that they were welcome and they felt welcome. We have a great desire to see everyone involved in a type of ministry. And we take people, if they don't know what they would be interested in, we try to show them a number of things. We try to get them plugged in a small group. We're looking for people who want to be passionate followers of Christ and to be discipled and then in turn disciple others.
Awesome. And I love the fact that you said this before we started, your church is big on service. How do we serve other people
How do you
with the
serve
love and grace of Jesus Christ? And that comes through loud and clear, even just in listening to you. So thank you for that, your example. Our guest today has been Pastor Matt Short from Living Word Baptist Church in Lynchburg, Virginia. We're so thankful that you came and shared with us today, Pastor Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah.
And our co-host has been Jacob Vanderbleek. Thank you, Jacob. You've been a great addition here today.
All right,
thank you for that. Did a great job on your first time, and we thank Taylor and Liam for all the behind-the-scenes work to produce this particular episode of Community Connection. We look forward to seeing you next Thursday, hopefully with Mr. Day behind this seat. Blessings. Keep serving as unto Christ. Bye-bye.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. Not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.